you look at the NFC South, man, that division looked wide open for a time. Not so much now, right? Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, you got to think they're the overwhelming favorite. But the New Orleans Saints, Mario, they are doing something or looking into doing something that might close that gap a little bit. Of course, we're talking about their reported offer that has been made for DeShaun Watson. It's a trade offer. For what it's worth, we have odds for DeShaun Watson's next team, and the New Orleans Saints are the odds-on favorite at plus 150 after opening at plus 900. Look, it's going to be expensive. We all knew that. Ian Rappaport was on the NFL Network earlier today saying the price tag has not changed. It's going to be 3 ones, probably some other picks, and some players involved there as well. There's a many different ways to look at this with DeShaun Watson, obviously, right? From a football standpoint, it's pretty much a no-brainer that, yeah, that guy's going to make your team better. But there is the off-the-field stuff. And while there's no criminal charges being brought, and that's when you saw this pick up, which makes sense. If there's no criminal charges, teams are going to be more open to going after a guy, even though he still has the 22 civil suits. There is still the 22 civil suits. So New Orleans is set to meet with DeShaun Watson at some point this week. You can bet, regardless if there's no criminal charges, all of that will be brought up and it will be hashed through. And it should be for New Orleans to make the most informed decision. So there's going to be a lot of mixed reactions to this. Look, DeShaun off the field, pretty greasy. On the field, from a football standpoint alone, pretty much a no-brainer for the New Orleans Saints.
Well said, man. I think we had the same opinion here in terms of how I feel. The moral aspect of it, DeShaun Watson. This is some heavy stuff, and I think that there's a concerning pattern of behavior in some of the allegations. And honestly, if you're a Saints fan, a lot of them have already spoke out against bringing him in. I'm not going to try to change your mind. I'm not going to argue on those things. However, I think it's important to acknowledge that, like you said, he was not indicted. He did not commit a crime. And with all due respect to the alleged victims, right now, technically and legally speaking, this is a case of he said and she said. And pending a background check from the team, like you said, I would not be opposed to bringing him in. Now, regardless of how you feel about all that, it's reflected in what the asking price is here in the trade. DeShaun Watson's trade value right now is what it was before all of this came to light. And before all this came to light, DeShaun Watson was healthy. He was leading the NFL in passing yards in 2020. That was a bad Houston Texans team, but DeShaun Watson can play. He's somebody who was really good coming into the NFL as a Heisman Trophy winner. He's somebody who's gotten better in his 4 years as a pro. From a football standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. And I'll tell you what, I think the Saints and Panthers both, if they're really serious about making this move, are feeling a little bit more pressure to make it now, because you do have not arguably, the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL now back on your division rival. And this is something that's not going to go away. I expect Carolina and New Orleans both to go really hard after DeShaun Watson, and that's just two of the teams that are interested. Cleveland has interest, according to Adam Schefter. Seattle, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Indianapolis. You can debate about which one of those are the best destinations, but at the end of the day, DeShaun Watson, similar to Russell Wilson, who we talked about in a very similar light, has a no-trade clause in his contract. He could pretty much pick where he wants to go, and it'll be interesting to see, now that he's indicted, which teams he is most interested in. We know which ones are interested in him.
For what it's worth, the Carolina Panthers, who you mentioned, they're next on those odds at plus 250. They opened at plus 1,000. You mentioned the Seattle Seahawks, interested, of course, after losing Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Seattle at plus 1,000 after opening at plus 1,200. So there might be some competition. I think, again, now look, we've talked about the deal. You're going to end up giving up 3 first-round picks. But there's going to be some players involved in there as well, and that's going to be interesting from a Saints standpoint at which players end up being involved. You've heard a lot about Ryan Ramczyk, which I'll be honest, I don't love, but I understand that he's the best right tackle, one of the best tackles overall in the NFL. People are obviously going to want to get their hands on that guy if they can in a trade. I would like to believe you could have him in an untouchable category, almost the same as like Mike Thomas or an Alvin Kamara. I don't think you can, though, and that does bother me a little bit because, look, you have to protect him if you get him, and Ryan Ramczyk's going to be a huge part of that. I would be much more willing to part with Marcus Davenport or even Marcus Williams when it comes to a trade like DeShaun Watson than I would be with Ryan Ramczyk.
Yeah, in a perfect world, the Saints are going to try to give up obviously the least they can give, and they're going to try to get the best, and that would include somebody like Ryan Ramczyk. But in these deals, usually the asking price is multiple first-round picks, especially for a quarterback, and that is starting caliber player. Ryan Ramczyk is in another league. That's an all-pro. So if you're Mickey Loomis, you should be able to say that you're asking me for all these first-round picks and an all-pro player in Ryan Ramczyk. Nah, man, that's too much. You got to back it up just a little bit, and maybe they meet somewhere in the middle, like not the guys you described, maybe not someone like Ryan Ramczyk, but maybe a player that's young and ascending, a Pete Werner who just had a really good rookie year. Paulson Adebo is also on a rookie contract, somebody who's not going to be expensive going forward, but guys who've already kind of shown what they can do. I think they would go after guys like Ryan Ramczyk. If Marcus Williams is tied down, they'd be going after a player his caliber. Even Marshawn Lattimore might get brought up. But I think if the Saints are able to pull this off, it's going to be a package involving a lot of first-round picks and then some starting caliber players, preferably guys that are on rookie deals, because that's a benefit to both teams in this trade. I don't know if they'd be able to get a Ryan Ramczyk, but at the end of the day, it is going to have to take a lot to get DeShaun Watson, but it might be worth it. You need a quarterback in this NFL, man.
Real quick before we grab a break, Jeff G in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat asks, would you give up Alvin Kamara for DeShaun Watson?
No, I wouldn't. I would try to work it out with Alvin. He's done a lot for the franchise already. You might disagree, but I would keep Kamara if you're going to put me on the spot.
I'd do it. I would do it. It really has nothing to do with the legal stuff, although, I mean, that's obviously a caveat of this, but I mean, that's going to be a caveat for whoever. So he's probably going to be suspended for at least 6 games. So even if you do, that has to be understood between teams, and I'm sure it would. Maybe that deflates a little bit of his value right now, but I would. Yeah.
Anything's on the table right now, honestly. This is going to be something that's ongoing, but we're going to hear potential trades like that, and that's something you had to consider because, again, especially in a team that's in a rebuild, you really, really have to try to get the best possible quarterback you can get. And DeShaun Watson, if you're able to put all that legal stuff to the side, is one of the best options out there.
Yeah.